Hey, how's it going and welcome to another video. Alright, so not too long ago, I finished Your Turn to Die, and I very much enjoyed it, so I figured I would make a video about it. And I'm actually going to be doing two videos. This one is a non-spoiler kind of overview and review of the game. And then at some point down the line, I'll make a video that's like more spoiler and kind of like story specific. Since this is definitely a game that I highly recommend people go through unspoiled, so I'm not even going to give you all the opportunity to get spoiled, but Your Turn to Die is a visual novel, like, adventure point-and-click game developed in RPG Maker made by one guy, which is extremely impressive. Like, I have a lot of respect for anybody who can make pretty much anything. Like, Lord knows that's more impressive than what I do, but it's very impressive for one guy to do all of the art, all of the writing, you know, designing the game. Like, it really is, I think, a testament to just, like, individual skill and, like, passion for making stuff. Because this really is the kind of game that you would assume that, like, an entire team of people made, which you would also have to exchange money for. But no, it is a completely free game. Like, you can play it on a browser. You don't even have to download it. Made by one dude, so there's no reason on this earth you can possibly sit there to say that you, like, cannot play the game because it is both free, and if you have a browser, then you can play it. So yeah, huge shout out to the creator Nankidai for making this. Like, it's genuinely thoroughly impressive. But yeah, Your Turn to Die revolves around the main character Sarah and her friend Joe, who end up getting kidnapped and forced to participate in a death game alongside 10 other participants. And I think the sort of like immediate natural reaction people have to that is, oh, like Danganronpa. And I would say yes and no. It's the kind of thing that, like, if you just describe it on a very basic level, it is easy to draw those comparisons, but I would kind of describe it as being like a Pokemon and Digimon situation where, you know, you describe one and the other in very basic terms, they sound very similar, but each thing definitely has its own style and its own identity, and I think Your Turn to Die really does a lot to set itself apart from Danganronpa, and like, similar sort of people are captured and forced to participate in like an awful death game, like sorts of media. One thing that pretty immediately sets it apart is that Your Turn to Die has a much wider age range for the cast, whereas in Danganronpa it's all high schoolers. Like in Your Turn to Die it's a bigger mixture of, you know, high schoolers and people that are in college and adults and like middle school kids even. And since I'm mentioning the characters, I guess I'll talk about them a little bit. So y'all know me, I'm kind of like a character freak. Characters really are the shit that I live and die for, so I'm very happy to announce that Your Turn to Die has a really good cast. Some of my favorites include Keiji, the very easygoing but very deductive policeman, Reiko, the punk rock GF, Kai, the house husband in training. Excuse me, he's referred to as a homemaker. He's kind of like awkward, but I don't know, I really vibe with the guy. I'd let him cook me a meal, shit. Gin, who's a character that you would expect to be extremely annoying, but I don't know, he's really endearing, he's pretty cute. And then there is my beloved So Hiyori. If you've seen one character from this game, it's probably him. He falls into a very specific character archetype. If you've played Danganronpa, then you absolutely know what I'm talking about, but he is far and away my favorite character, and I will be talking about him extensively in part 2. But beyond just the characters that I really like, I think all of these characters, they at least bring something to the table. They bring like a unique perspective or a particular way of doing things, like a profession or a skill. All of their existences do feel pretty important in some way. Like, obviously, some characters, it feels like they kind of pull their weight in the game a little bit more, but that's very much by design, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But I think probably my favorite thing about the game overall really is just its emphasis on discussions and trust in one another, and how it uses these characters stuck in this really awful experience and kind of makes something very realistic feeling out of it. Like, even though it is a work of fiction and it is obviously very fantastical and kind of over the top in a lot of areas, like, I think at the very core of it, they feel like very genuine discussions and sometimes arguments that people in a shitty situation would have with each other. And of course, the title of the game is Your Turn to Die, Death Game by Majority, and majority votes play a very big role in the game. The main attraction, and absolutely my favorite part of the whole game, are the big sort of roundtable discussions that you have at the end of each chapter, where you hold a majority vote to decide which of the characters will die. These are great. Like I said a second ago, like, I think the game's strongest suit really is just that dialogue and the back and forth the characters have. And I know I'm comparing it to Danganronpa a lot, but like, in Danganronpa, what you're voting on is trying to decide, like, which of the characters is the murderer. Like, the goal in that game is to kill somebody and get away with it, so even though it sucks and it's shitty, at the end of the day, you're still trying to uncover, like, which among your friends is a murder person. Whereas with this, I would argue it's a much more harsh sort of like, alright, who here is not pulling their weight? And who can we get rid of? And man, like, obviously a ton of factors play into stuff like that, just based on, you know, how useful they've been throughout the various games that you play. Since in between these big trials, you have a lot of, like, little games that you end up playing, like, puzzles to solve. Like, the entire place that you're stuck in is basically one big fucking, like, labyrinth of tricks and riddles and clues, death traps. Like, it's a lot of fun to explore and just, like, solve the mystery of what's going on. But yeah, obviously characters argue in terms of like, yeah, I've been so useful, remember when I helped out with that thing? Or arguing for like, oh yeah, well this character is mighty suspicious, like what were you doing when we were all here doing this thing? Sometimes characters' personal biases just get in the way of just like, you know what, I just don't like you. Yeah, I just don't like the fucking way you look, man. And that stuff is great. I really, really, really enjoy just the arguments and the back and forth and the mind games and essentially trying to find an answer to this awful problem of, okay, like we have to just kill one of our friends here. But on top of that, there's an extra element to the game that I really, really fucking like. And that is every character is given a role. Kind of think like if you've ever played like Mafia or Town of Salem or like Werewolf. Everyone is given a different card that kind of affects their role in the voting. So for example, there's the Keymaster, which is like, that's the one that you want to have. Since if people end up majority voting for the Keymaster, everyone dies. So nobody in their right mind is going to vote for the Keymaster. Then there's the Sacrifice, who is pretty much guaranteed to die unless they get the majority vote. So essentially, they're the opposite. They're the one who wants to sit there and be like, vote for me, guys, I want to die. Then there's the Sage, who knows definitively who the Keymaster is, and everyone else is a commoner. So as you can imagine, this adds an entire extra fucked layer of discussion that I thoroughly love. Since now it's not just, oh yeah, well, this guy is an asshole, so let's all just vote for him. Now it's, okay, this guy is an asshole, but what if he's the Keymaster? And naturally, this becomes a big point of contention when characters just start fucking lying about the cards that they have. That's always the biggest oh shit moment in any of these, whenever somebody's like, alright, well, I'm the Keymaster. So like I said, if you've ever played, you know, Mafia or Town of Salem, you know exactly what this is like. So if that sounds cool to you, fucking play this game immediately. It is so much, like, I don't know if I want to say fun, but enthralling, I guess is a better way of putting it, to like figure out, you know, okay, who has the Sacrifice? Like, who's the guy that we're not going to vote for? So it's just this great balancing act of, first of all, figuring out, alright, who can go, but also, can they go? But yeah, there's a lot to it. Like, you're given a lot of information and a lot of shit to kind of think about and sit through. So if you want to go through something that'll really get the old noggin jogging, then like, absolutely play this. Now, as a precaution, the game is not actually done yet. Like, the final chapter is coming out sometime next year. But I would definitely say don't let that discourage you. Like, I more than got my fill of content from what's available. Like, I spent the better part of a week, like, going through pretty long play sessions of the game. I would go, like, 3, sometimes 4 hours of playing it. And it took me quite a bit. Like, there is a lot of content to go through. So, yeah, I would say it's definitely worth going through, even though it's not technically complete. There's still a lot to, like, get invested in and just play through. But yeah, Your Turn to Die, really enjoyed it. I would say I even liked it a little bit more than I was kind of expecting to. It has way more of its own identity and concepts, and just, like, it has a very different feel to kind of what I was expecting it to be. So I gotta give it props for that. I really enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, eventually I'll end up doing a video that's a lot more, like, spoilery, talking about, like, specific character stuff, particular moments and things about it that I liked and I didn't like. This is kind of you guys' opportunity to, like, get a head start before I start rambling like an insane person. So yeah, play through the game and then meet up with me in, like, a few weeks, and we can really dig deep. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.